Hello friends, I'm in the McNairy County Courthouse in McNairy County, Tennessee, here in Selmer, Tennessee, which is the county seat. I'm up on the top floor of the courthouse. Back in the mid-60s, all the way up through the end of Sheriff Buford Pusser's term, this was the county jail on the top floor of the courthouse. And they're gracious enough to let people come up here and tour this, as well as the basement offices where a lot of his old stuff is housed. You can take a look at that. But they were very nice. They told me I could take a video in here and all the pictures I wanted, so I want to do a walkthrough for you, for those who might not be as fortunate as me today to get to come see this in person. This would have been the old jail kitchen where they would have prepared meals. And from what I've read, Sheriff Pusser's wife, Pauline, used to do some cooking up here. Sheriff Pusser's dad, Carl Pusser, was one of the head jailers, so I'd be willing to bet he probably sat at this desk a time or two. And they've got a big mural of Sheriff Pusser here on the wall of the jail. It's really neat to see these old-fashioned jail cells. I've worked in law enforcement for many years myself, and I can tell you that the jails today are not this primitive. They have quite a few more luxuries compared to this, for sure. I would not want to be locked up in this place. You kind of see the top of the courthouse through the blinds there. Or at least I hope you can. Look at this old shower facility. But yeah, what a neat old jail to tour. I'm so thankful that they're nice enough to let people come up here and see this. Here's the other side of the cells. We was just in there a few minutes ago. Here's another mural of Sheriff Pusser on the wall. Now this is what is known as a bean chute. If you've ever worked in corrections in a county jail or state jail, 3 times a day, your jailer would come here to feed the prisoners, and he would slide the plate through this bean chute. That's for officer safety. The bean chute can be pulled up and closed. I'm not going to mess with it because I don't have authority to be doing that. But anyways, you would slide the plate through there, and then the inmates would go to one of those tables and eat their food. They've got a lot of neat murals all the way on the walls through this jail facility, relating to Sheriff Pusser and his time in office. Here's some more jail cells. And I'm going to step into the cell here where I just showed you that the bean chute led into, where they would pass the trays. So you can kind of see how it would look from the inmate's perspective. The inmate would come up to the door here, and they would get their meal from the jailer right here. That's the other side of it. There's actually still a lot of old graffiti in this jail facility. That's kind of neat that they left all that for you to see when you come in here. To be quite honest, it looks like when they closed this particular facility down and moved out, they just pretty much left it as it was, with the exception of the murals they painted on here relating to Sheriff Buford Pusser. I'm assuming that was probably done afterwards once they opened it up for tourists to see. That old shower scene, it's better days for sure. As has this old toilet. Back when inmates would have been housed in here, they would have each got a little cot type of thing that they would have set on this metal frame. Probably a cot and a blanket. So this room would have slept close to 8 people, looks like. Yeah, around 8 people. Of course, back in the day, I'm not sure they probably didn't have a jail standards per the state like we do, I know in Texas. So they might even threw a few more on the floors of some cots back in the day. Can't do that kind of stuff anymore, but that was a different world in that time, in the 60s. But yeah, here's a really neat timeline of Sheriff Pusser on the wall. I'll actually walk you along this and then we'll finish around the corridor. It's a narrow hallway right here. Kind of give you an idea of what you can see when you come visit the McNairy County Courthouse and the jail up top. There's a mural about the ambush on August 12, 1967 that unfortunately took the life of his wife, Pauline. So what I'll actually do, I don't want to make this video too long, but I'm going to walk up to each one because they've all got a little write up here. I'm going to put it where you can pause it if you want to read this. I'm not going to read them off to you, but you can pause the video if you want to read what it says. I'll try to get this last one here. Okay, now I'm going to continue around this corridor of the jail cell. Let you take a look at it. And you got a pretty good view of the courthouse rooftop here. This is really neat, and I'm so thankful that the county of McNairy lets folks like me come up here and take a look at this, because they sure don't have to. I know some counties are not this free with letting you into their old jail system, or their old jail sites up on top of the courthouse top floors. Usually you have to obtain special permission, and so it's very gracious that they allow us to do this. Another mural of Sheriff Pusser on the wall here. And another, looks like about an 8-man tank again on the other side. Another really old looking toilet. If you ever read Dwana Pusser's book called Walking On, she tells several interesting stories about growing up as a little girl and being up here with her parents or her grandpa on the top floor of this courthouse. One of the stories she tells was that a man escaped and jumped through one of these windows and broke his arm. I think he hit a tree and broke his arm, if I remember correctly. And she also talks about finding an inmate hanging. He committed suicide in here. She walked in and peeked in his cell and actually found him hanging, which is probably pretty traumatic for a young girl. Another time she says that as she was walking through, I'll show you to illustrate the story. She tells another story, and I have no way of knowing where this happened, but we'll use this cell as an example. She walked close to the bars and one of the inmates grabbed her and pulled her to the cells, and I think he either had a shank, knife type object, or was pretending like he did. And she started screaming, and her grandpa, Carl Pusser, who was Buford's dad, come in here and started trying to talk to the inmate to let her go. Eventually, Dwana was able to squirm free and get away from him. And she says that within a few minutes of her grandpa had contacted her dad, Buford, and then Buford and her grandpa, Carl, come back here where the inmate was in one of these cells, and her grandpa was carrying his walking stick. And she says when Dad and Grandpa come out of the cell area, the walking stick was broken, so you can kind of deduce what probably happened there. I'm sure Buford was not happy that this guy grabbed his daughter. Probably gave him some discipline. And I believe this picture you see here, I believe is Deputy Jim Moffitt and P.D. Plunk. I believe that's the deputy we see in the photograph here. You'll notice on Buford's chin, I believe that was following the August 12th ambush. I believe he was shot a couple different times, but I believe that scar was from the August 12th ambush. And one of my favorite photos over here shows young Dwana and Buford's wife, Pauline. And I read in a book the other day that this is the last known photograph of Pauline taken. And it says here March of 1967. She was killed on August 12th, 1967. So you see a young Dwana holding her puppy, and you see Pauline there reading a newspaper. Very tragic what happened to his family. Definitely a very dangerous job then and now, but sounds like it was really dangerous here in McNairy County back in the day. The state line mob and everything that was going on. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tour of the courthouse. I pretty much walked you through everything that I see, with the exception of, oh, here's two more things. Let's check this out. I'll put this here and you can pause it if you want to read it. It says an escape, well actually I'll read this one to you. It says an escaped prisoner from the McNairy County Jail was in poor condition in a Memphis hospital after being shot during a wild chase near Corinth early Monday morning. Deputy Sheriff Carl Pusser said that Paul David English of Mitchie escaped from the jail Sunday night by sliding down a rope to the ground. He, a trustee, and a Selmer girl were reported to have fled in a stolen car. Sheriff Buford Pusser and two Alcorn County police officials were reported to have located English at a house in Corinth and gave chase when the escapee fled after firing at the officers. English was wounded in the chase when officers returned the fire. The bullet which hit the escapee was reported to have passed through the trunk of the car and hit him in the spine. The trustee who escaped with English and the girl were uninjured and were returned to the jail in Selmer. English had been convicted of murder in the May 28 shooting of Stanley Fowler at Mitchie and sentenced to 10 years and was awaiting transfer to the penitentiary in Nashville. And I guess that's the particular inmate we're talking about. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that's the one that Dwana had talked about jumping out of one of the windows and breaking his arm, I think. Don't quote me on that because I may be wrong. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this tour. And I've had a fun week out here chasing down these historical locations in the life of Sheriff Buford Pusser. It's been fun and been an honor to share it with you. Hope you enjoy it.